Sport which has caught the imagination of the public in New Zealand, and it's called superkarting. Superkarts are nothing like the old go-karts we remember, which came out in the late 50s and 60s. Super is the word, and these super machines whiz around the tracks at fantastic speeds. Let's have a look at some highlights from the first round of the Lep International Superkart series, which was raced around the streets of Christchurch. The commentator is Tony Palmer.
For the first time ever, the Christchurch City Council has allowed its streets to be open to the most exciting form of motorsport, street racing. We have Wordsworth Street, Waltham Road, Kingsley Street and Gasson Street forming the circuit for international superkarts in the Lep International Series. An excellent field of overseas drivers competing against New Zealand's best, and they will be reaching speeds of 130 miles an hour on this street circuit. Let's meet some of the international field and New Zealand drivers. The man to beat, letter O, Lennart Bohlin from Sweden, 4 times World Cup winner, winner of the last round of the World Championship at Le Mans in October. A Zip Grand Prix frame, Rotax engine. In kart number 4 and wearing the black leathers, Eric Barnes from Australia. It's a Zip Grand Prix frame and one of the few using a TZ Yamaha motor. Kart number 22, it's an eliminator frame, Rotax engine from Australia, Gerard Siebert. The unmistakable face of Ginger Malloy from Huntley, former runner-up in the World Motorcycle Championship, this time in a kart. He normally runs his own frames. This time he has a Zip GP with a Rotax engine, having changed from a Yamaha TZ. Kart number 46, a Zip GP frame, a Rotax engine, and in it, defending Lep International champion Chris Lambden, UK born but educated at Christ College here in Christchurch. Kart number 99 is another Zip GP Rotax, a Christchurch man, Jim Rouse, 34 years old and one of the top New Zealanders for a number of years in karts now. Also a Zip with Rotax power, as you can see, a very colourful character, 34-year-old Steve Jones from Christchurch, the top New Zealander running the number NZ. A man who has represented New Zealand 5 times overseas, one of the stalwarts of kart racing, John Hamilton, 37 years old, in a Wilco Rotax. Last year's runner-up in the Lep International Series, the man they call Sideways Smith, Nigel Smith of Britain. It's a Zip GP frame, an Ehrlich Rotax motor. And here's bad luck before the first heat even. Steve Jones, New Zealand champion and New Zealand's best hope in the International Series, has damaged a gearbox and they're working frantically to repair it while the rest of the field line up on the grid for the first round of the Lep International 250 Superkart Series. Weaving around and warming up the tyres in readiness for the start of Heat 1 in the Lep International 250 Superkart Series. A good field of international starters, including perhaps the world's leading superkart exponent of the moment, Lennart Bohlin of Sweden. Letter O at the front of the grid. Have a look as they come around. They line up. They have a mobile start in kart racing. Just weaving around to get the tyre compound warm, to get adhesion. When they come around to face the starter, if they're lined up in the correct order, then they'll get an orange flag for the start. They must line up in the right order and they must be doing the right speed to get a start, otherwise they've got to circulate again. The starter has told them to go round again. They run slicks on these superkarts and the tyre compound is relatively soft, but it needs to be warm before it works effectively. That's why all the weaving around. Try and get a little heat from the friction and some warmth into the tyres so that they're nice and sticky for the start, which means that they can go hard at the start. One of the dangers in superkart racing, as with any form of motorsport where they use slick tyres, is that you cannot go really hard from the start unless the tyres are warm enough to take the braking and the acceleration. Can be very, very dangerous. But an excellent field here. Lennart Bohlin representing New Zealand. Steve Jones still in the pits trying to get his car fixed, furiously working on the gearbox. We have Chris Lambden from England, Nigel Smith from England, John Gordon from New Zealand, Ginger Malloy, some very well-known names in karting here. A very, very good representative field. Let's have a look this time round as they come round to face the starter again and see if they get the orange flag. All all getting psyched up now. The adrenaline's starting to flow. They know they're ready for a start. And in this kind of competitive field, unless you get a good start, you can wave goodbye to your chances in the race. Very, very hot and competitive. One missed gear change, one tiny mistake, and that's your chances gone. But it is an excellent international field. The starter waving the flag now, they're away. Have a look at who sprints into the first corner. Lennart Bohlin, first up. Bohlin into the first corner through the right-hander. Round past PDL corner. Lennart Bohlin it is, from Sweden, leading the race very early on. We would have expected New Zealand's Steve Jones to be up there in the fray as well. Number 69 is Nigel Smith from England in second place. 46, Chris Lambden. There, Bohlin leading them through again. 69, Nigel Smith right behind him in the red car. These two are going to have a battle royal, nothing surer. Lennart Bohlin is certainly the man to beat on practice times. They're doing about 41 seconds around this 1100-metre circuit, reaching speeds of 120 miles an hour in a straight line. The skill involved here is enormous. Still Lennart Bohlin, 40-year-old post office engineer from Sweden, who started his motor racing in karts at the same time as Ronnie Peterson, was a contemporary of Peterson's. 69 still second, and 99 is Jim Rouse, the top New Zealander. So New Zealand third, England second, Sweden first at the moment. Number 9 in there is John Hamilton, another top Kiwi. John Gordon, number 8, another top Kiwi. All the front runners running Zip frames and Rotax engines, Rotax 250s, 6-speed gearboxes, and they're up and down through the gearbox a great deal around this 1100-metre circuit. Lennart Bohlin, still the man to beat, starting to clear away a little now, showing superior form. 69, Nigel Smith trying to hang in there, but starting to spread out already. Getting a little bit sideways is Jim Rouse from New Zealand. My goodness, look at the margin this man has opened up already. 3 laps into the 10-lap race, the first heat. Everybody said before the event started that this was the man to beat. Doesn't matter where the circuit is. In fact, at Bay Park a couple of weeks ago, he set a time of 55.8, which would have put him in third place on a Formula Pacific grid on the same day. So these cars are as fast on a short circuit as Formula Pacific cars, capable of 160 miles an hour in a straight line. They're doing about 120 around here on the Christchurch streets, the most exciting form of street racing. Bohlin through. There's Nigel Smith, Sideways Smith they call him. Number 46 is Chris Lambden, the other Englishman, in third place, who has got past Jim Rouse, number 99. So the first New Zealander is in fourth place at the moment. There's Jim Rouse. 2 Englishmen battling it out, Nigel Smith and Chris Lambden, neck and neck. Lambden in front of Smith. Who comes out of the corner first? It's Lambden. Chris Lambden, number 46, in second place. Nigel Smith third, trying to have another go. Great little dice here for second place. There's Smith in front again. Oh, superb motor racing for second and third. Lennart Bohlin has cleared out in front, and there's a great little tussle going on between the 2 Englishmen, Chris Lambden and Nigel Smith, for second place. There's Bohlin through the corner and round into the next straight before the next man, Chris Lambden, comes through. Sweden, England, New Zealand at the moment. 3.5 laps left. Still Lennart Bohlin, starting to pick up now at lap back markers. 4 times the World Cup winner and the winner of the last World Championship round at Le Mans in October. Lennart Bohlin from Sweden coming up now to lap the back now, marker number 6. So that's the lead that Bohlin has already. The race really is back in second place, the race for second and third. There's Bohlin way out of the lead. Almost the length of the straight now before the 2 Englishmen come into sight. And that's where the battle is between Chris Lambden and Nigel Smith. Lambden in front of Smith. Smith gets him round the outside. Have a look as they go to the next piece. They are so even, these 2. And trying to stay with them is New Zealand's Jim Rouse in 4th place. That's Chris Lambden, 46. Nigel Smith, number 69. One cart off the circuit already. Number 9, John Hamilton, looks like he's out of the race. Still Leonard Bohlin out in front. Number 8, John Gordon, getting up there in 6th place now. The best New Zealander at the moment, Jim Rouse. It's a shame that Steve Jones from New Zealand is not in this first race, but there's a great little battle for 2nd and 3rd still going on between the two Englishmen. Chris Lambden and Nigel Smith still fighting it out, neck and neck, and changing the order in each corner. Leonard Bohlin out in front by a country mile at this stage. A top world-class superkart racer, showing them the way around this Christchurch street circuit. Obviously has the gear ratio sorted out. There's Nigel Smith in front of Lambden again. Steve Rouse still holding New Zealand's end up. Jim Rouse, sorry. Steve Jones out of the race. There's Bohlin, our race leader. Oh, what superb, smooth form. Getting the traction on the ground. The engine is obviously in perfect order. The power bound in these machines between 10 and 12,000 revs, and you really got to stay between 10 and 12,000 revs everywhere. It means being in the right gear at the right place at the right time all the time. Here's Bohlin being held up just a little by a back marker, giving the two Englishmen a chance to catch up just a little on him. Perhaps he's come off the pace, 41 seconds on the last lap. Bohlin round now. See if we can have a look back. See what the lead is over the two Englishmen. Here they come now. Chris Lambden in front of Nigel Smith. Lambden 2nd, Smith 3rd. Jim Rouse 4th. Jim Rouse, no. Nigel Smith pulling out. So after that great little battle that we've had for most of the race, Nigel Smith has pulled out, leaving Jim Rouse in 3rd place, the first New Zealander. Here comes Chris Lambden round now. As Bohlin goes through, Lambden is catching him, Jim Rouse behind him, putting a back marker between them. Lambden has really pulled it up. Here's our race leader, Leonard Bohlin. The next car, Chris Lambden. Jim Rouse still 3rd for New Zealand. Sweden, England, New Zealand, the order at the moment. The checkered flag for Leonard Bohlin. There's Chris Lambden in 2nd place, and 3rd place going to New Zealand's Jim Rouse. Looking for 4th place now. There is 4th place through, but no question about the leader, Leonard Bohlin from Sweden. Winning the first heat by a country mile in the 250 Lep International Superkart Series. Nigel Smith was having a great battle with Chris Lambden for 2nd place, but Nigel Smith has pulled out with an engine problem of some kind. Chris Lambden is 2nd, and New Zealand's Jim Rouse, holding up the Kiwi end, comes in 3rd. Almost ready now for a start in the 2nd heat. The points at this stage, Leonard Bohlin, 15 points for a win. Chris Lambden was 2nd, he gets 12. Jim Rouse, 10 points for 3rd. And then Derek Wilson, Eric Barnes, Ginger Malloy, 9, 8, 7. That's the way the points go for each heat. And the start, unlike other go-kart races, or karting races should we say, where they start in reverse grid order, this time they will start on the fastest times from the first heat. So forget about the fact that Nigel Smith was in there and dicing very, very quickly. He didn't finish the race because he broke a chain, as did Jim Rouse, but Jim Rouse broke his after the checkered flag. One of the problems they're having as they line up this time for the starter, are they going to get a start? No, he's told them to go round again. One of the problems that they have is that they're bouncing so much on this road circuit that the axle flexes and they're breaking chains. And one or two of the drivers are a little disappointed that they're damaging as much gear as they have been damaging very early on in the series, because this is the first of a 3-meeting series, and the other 2 races are on circuits, Levels at Timaru and Ruapuna at Christchurch. Leonard Bohlin, before the race, we were talking to him before practice, and he was fitting the heaviest chain he could find and making sure that the link was all wired up, the joining link, and that's where the other 2 broke them, Jim Rouse and Nigel Smith. So Nigel Smith will have to start off the back of the grid along with 1 or 2 other top competitors and have to work his way through. So expect another stunning performance from the Swede Leonard Bohlin. Letter O at the front there. Behind him, Jim Rouse, Chris Lambton behind him. Coming round again to line up in the proper grid order at a reasonable pace. Right on the back, you'll see Nigel Smith, number 69, having to start off the back of the grid because of a DNF in the first. So as you can see, not finishing in one heat is a huge advantage in the next because you've got to go off the back of the grid. This time they've got the flag, they're away. Look for Bohlin again. He's third into the first corner by the looks. He'll get that right. Jim Rouse through first. Bohlin gets him on the first corner. Rouse second. Lambton third. Chris Lambton in third place still. Coming through again. Bohlin already into the lead. Jim Rouse behind him. There's Bohlin. Jim Rouse behind him, then Chris Lambton in third. These three, perhaps they won't get away quite as quickly as they did on the rest of the field in the first heat. Number 9 going round, John Hamilton, looking to improve his place, but Bohlin is the man to catch. The 40-year-old Swede, 4 times World Cup winner. He's been racing karts for 22 years. An absolute expert at setting up the kart and at racing. Jim Rouse in second now, Lambton third. Bohlin, they're not letting him get away that quickly this time. Jim Rouse in front. Bohlin has a problem. He's back to third place. Either he missed a gear or he has a problem with the engine. We'll wait and see. Jim Rouse from New Zealand leading. Chris Lambton from England second. Bohlin dropping back. He's obviously got a problem. Number 8 up into third place is John Gordon from New Zealand. There's Bohlin dropping back through the field. We'll find out what the problem is as soon as we can, but Jim Rouse is having a great little dice with Chris Lambton from England. Jim Rouse from New Zealand, Chris Lambton from England, and already up to third place is Nigel Smith. An amazing improvement from the back of the field for the other Englishman, Nigel Smith. Coming through very quickly indeed, but New Zealand's Jim Rouse leading at this stage. Chris Lambton second. Both zip-framed Rotax engine. Yes, it is. Nigel Smith right up into third place already. Let's see how quickly he can challenge Chris Lambton. He only lasted 8 of the 10 laps in the first heat and broke a chain. Bad luck for him. Jim Rouse still leading. New Zealand, England, England. This time through, Jim Rouse still in the lead. Lambton going up the inside. Have a look as they get through and see if Lambton has got in front of Jim Rouse. Lambton, Rouse, Nigel Smith. Chris Lambton from England leads. Jim Rouse still hanging on his tail. Nigel Smith up there, and in fourth place, John Gordon from New Zealand. New Zealand is second and fourth at the moment. Englishman first and third. Chris Lambton starting to pull away a little now from Jim Rouse from New Zealand. Very, very tight little circuit, but they're still reaching 120 miles an hour in the straights. The chicane that is in the straight has cut down the number of passing points from 3 to 2 on the circuit. But it hasn't stopped Nigel Smith from getting up through the field very quickly indeed. Can Nigel Smith challenge Jim Rouse of New Zealand for second place? Chris Lambton leads. Jim Rouse still holding on to that second place. Nigel Smith coming up behind him, closing in third place. Lambton, Jim Rouse, Nigel Smith. Chris Lambton of England only takes one little tiny mistake on this kind of circuit to lose your place. Leonard Bohlin with maximum points from the first race has dropped right back. He's out of sight completely now. We don't know if he's still on the circuit or not, but he's not in contention. Here's Chris Lambton, 30-year-old defending champion of this series. Born in the United Kingdom, educated at Christ College in Christchurch, and back in New Zealand to race again. He in fact won the New Zealand 100cc title in 1976. The defending Lep International Superkart Series champion. And coming up to lap, Leonard Bohlin now, who is way out of contention. Chris Lambton still leading. Nigel Smith in third place. Between them is Jim Rouse of New Zealand. Jim Rouse still hanging on to Chris Lambton's wheel. Try to hang in there, and right up into fourth place, number 9, John Hamilton has overtaken John Gordon. John Hamilton from Christchurch. 37-year-old who's represented New Zealand 5 times in international karting. Chris Lambden, Jim Rouse, Nigel Smith. This time through, Chris Lambden, Jim Rouse, Nigel Smith, John Hamilton. Good tight racing at the front. The man that they've got to beat is Chris Lambden this time round. Lennart Bohlin out of contention. And the way he walked away with the first series was largely due to Nigel Smith in second place, holding up the rest of the field and letting them bunch up behind him, which allowed Bohlin to get away in front. And the other Englishman up in front of Jim Rouse now. Chris Lambden leads from Nigel Smith. Nigel Smith came from the back of the field. He's in front of Jim Rouse in second place. Jim Rouse is third. John Hamilton still fourth. New Zealand is third and fourth. Englishmen first and second. Chris Lambden of England still leading. Nigel Smith trying to get past him. This is an amazing drive from Nigel Smith of England, who broke a chain on the 8th lap of the first race and has come from the back of the field in the second heat to get right up to second place behind his fellow countryman Chris Lambden. Lambden still leading Smith. Smith trying for all his worth to get up there close enough to pass. Nigel Smith, the 32-year-old runner-up of last year's series, so it's last year's winner leading from last year's runner-up. And this man Nigel Smith was the 1983 TV Times champion in England, the televised series over there, and he holds the world record for a lap in superkarts. He was third in the European title championship this year as well. Trying to pull up on Chris Lambden. Has he got enough time left in the race to do it? England, New Zealand is the order. Lap board coming out for Chris Lambden and Nigel Smith. The two Englishmen. Jim Rouse still in third place, holding out John Hamilton. John Hamilton trying to close on Jim Rouse in third place. He's going to have to do it quickly if he's going to get through. Nigel Smith through on Chris Lambden. He's come from the back of the field and leads the race. What an astonishing performance from this Englishman. Nigel Smith from the back of the field leads the race in the second heat of the International Superkart Series on the final lap, and he's done it at the right place. Let's hope this machine can hold together. Nigel Smith from England leading, comes past the checkered flag. Nigel Smith wins from Chris Lambden. Jim Rouse of New Zealand in third place, and go back to John Hamilton of New Zealand in fourth. Well, what an astonishing performance from this 32-year-old Englishman, the 83 TV Times champion and last year's runner-up. Nigel Smith comes from the back of the field to beat Chris Lambden, his fellow countryman, and New Zealand's Jim Rouse in third place. Lining up now for the final race of the day on the Christchurch Street Circuit in the Lep International Superkart 250 Series, the final race known as the Hertz Race. We have Lennart Bohlin from Sweden won the first race. Nigel Smith has won the next two. Nigel Smith came from the back on one of those races to win. So on the points, Nigel Smith leads with 30. Eric Barnes 28, Chris Lambden 24, John Hamilton 20, John Gordon 18, and Jim Rouse 17. England leading from Australia. Now, Chris Lambden won't be starting in this race because he seized the bottom end of his Rotax engine. Eric Bohlin also had a seizure, but he's repaired his and is back out there, as you can see. Letter O, Eric Bohlin from Sweden, so expect him to come from the back. He finished well down the order. They start, once again, in the order that they finished. Rather than a reverse grid, the quickest men start off the front for safety reasons. It is often the case in kart racing where the grid order is a reverse of the previous race, so that the quick men have to come from the back. And we have Lennart Bohlin from Sweden right down the back. You can see on the right-hand side of your picture, letter O. And on the front, number 9, John Hamilton. Number 4, Eric Barnes. Number 69, Nigel Smith. Australia, New Zealand, England represented on the front of the grid. Coming around this time, let's see if they can get a start. 120 miles an hour they are doing on this circuit. A 10-lap race once again. The man to watch from the back of the grid, if he can get through, and then he will have to challenge Nigel Smith at the front. Nigel Smith in the red car on the right-hand side. Number 69, Eric Barnes, number 4. Number 9, John Hamilton. Number 8, John Gordon. Have a look this time round, waiting for the orange flag to drop. They must be lined up in the right grid order to get a start. Lined up correctly and doing the right speed to get a start. See if the flag drops this time round. Here's the flag marshal. He's dropped the flag. They're away. Racing in the 4th heat. The Hertz final of the day in the Christchurch Street Circuit. Leading into the first corner, John Hamilton. Bohlin is right through. A tremendous start from Eric Bohlin from Sweden. Right through from the back of the grid. And leading the race at this early stage from Nigel Smith, number 69, behind him. Sweden leading from England. New Zealand in 3rd place. Number 9, John Hamilton, in 3rd place for New Zealand. Look at them this time through. Eric Bohlin in the first heat ran away with the lead. When he got in the lead, he was never challenged. Nigel Smith will expect this time to get close enough to him to challenge. That's Smith right behind him, number 69. John Hamilton dropping back in 3rd place. Round on the first lap, Eric Bohlin from Sweden. 4 times winner of the World Cup Series, one of the world's most accomplished superkart drivers. And the Zip GP Rotax engine superkart leading away in this 4th and final heat of the day. Eric Bohlin out to a good lead. Nigel Smith still behind him. John Hamilton from New Zealand in 3rd place. Go back to 4th place, 99, Jim Rouse. And then John Gordon behind him. So Jim Rouse and John Hamilton holding up New Zealand's end. That's Eric Barnes in number 4. Jim Rouse right behind him, and Bohlin is round. Bohlin's overdone it on the corner. He's out of contention now, so Nigel Smith leads the race. England's Nigel Smith, from Australia's Eric Barnes, Jim Rouse from New Zealand, and then John Hamilton. Race leader being challenged by Eric Barnes from Australia. They had a great night in the 3rd heat. We might get the same kind of racing this time round. Nigel Smith still round from Eric Barnes of Australia, Jim Rouse of New Zealand, then John Hamilton of New Zealand. Go back to John Gordon of New Zealand in 5th place. That's the order. Looking like a bit of a procession at the moment. Not quite the dicing we had in the first race, except at the front here. Nigel Smith bouncing really high out of that corner. That's cost him the place because Eric Barnes of Australia has got in front. Oh, challenging. Superbly close racing out in front. Nigel Smith, can he get back at Eric Barnes? Eric Barnes in the TZ Yamaha powered frame. Nigel Smith in the Rotax power. Jim Rouse staying with them right behind. New Zealand's end being held up by number 99, Jim Rouse. Another Zip GP with Rotax power. This time through the chicane, Eric Barnes leads. Nigel Smith 2nd, Jim Rouse 3rd. Australia, England, New Zealand. Go back to John Hamilton and John Gordon having a good battle for 4th place. Eric Barnes around, bouncing that time. Nigel Smith starting to drop back a bit. I wonder if he's got a problem with the car. Jim Rouse starting to reel him in. John Gordon pulling up. Good racing. John Gordon and John Hamilton, number 8 and number 9. John Gordon in front of Hamilton now. Nigel Smith back, dropping back even further. Eric Barnes of Australia leading. Have a look at the next corner. There's Eric Barnes, 6 laps to go. Nigel Smith dropping back substantially. Jim Rouse behind him from New Zealand. John Gordon from New Zealand in 4th place. John Hamilton of New Zealand in 5th place. Eric Barnes pulling away with his lead now. Nigel Smith's got the job in front of him to try and catch. There's Barnes. Here's Smith coming through now. Jim Rouse having a go at Smith. Nigel Smith trying to protect his 2nd place. And dropping back just a little, these two. Nigel Smith and Jim Rouse of New Zealand. Somebody else pulled up there. There's Eric Barnes of Australia through the chicane. Pulling out a substantial lead now. Well, they're really going to have to go to catch this man, Eric Barnes. He fought his way through in the 3rd race in the 2nd place. Finished 5th in the 1st race. We didn't see him in the 2nd. In the 3rd race, he fought his way through 2nd place. Nigel Smith and Jim Rouse battling for 2nd. No question about 1st place. Eric Barnes of Australia. The Yamaha TZ, which apparently had been uncompetitive in the karts, he's got it going beautifully. Into the chicane, Barnes, Smith, Rouse. John Gordon of New Zealand challenging Rouse. A great little battle here, second, third and fourth. Nigel Smith, Jim Rouse, John Gordon. John Gordon really bouncing off the edge of the circuit there. Smith, Rouse having a go at Smith. Can he get into the corner first? You can see the lead that they have. Eric Barnes is away in that lead. Jim Rouse still challenging for that second place. John Gordon back in fourth. There's the race leader, Eric Barnes of Australia, through now. Still Nigel Smith second. Jim Rouse third. John Gordon fourth. There's Nigel Smith. Jim Rouse had got close enough to him on the last lap. It looked like he was going to pass. He's dropped back just a little now. Nigel Smith starting to pull away from Jim Rouse. John Gordon still hanging in there in fourth place. Eric Barnes is away with the lead. Second place and third place is where the battle is. Nigel Smith. Eric Barnes away in the lead. Nigel Smith trying to hold off Jim Rouse. Rouse having to go to him on the inside. Can't get round that time. Look at the sprint to the next. Nigel Smith has the line inside. Jim Rouse having to settle for third place still. Meanwhile, Eric Barnes of Australia is pulling away in the lead, while second and third tight. Oh, Eric Barnes very, very close there to the corner. Getting close on the outside, Eric Barnes. On the last lap now. They're not close enough to catch Barnes. If he can keep going, he's away with the lead. And a win in the final race. Pulling up his championship points overall. Remember, they've still got to go to Timaru and to Ruapuna after this racing on the Christchurch streets today. But in the last lap, Eric Barnes of Australia is leading. Nigel Smith of England is second. Jim Rouse of New Zealand third. And then John Gordon of New Zealand fourth. Australia, England, New Zealand the order. Here's Jim Rouse. And where is Nigel Smith? Well, Smith seems to have gone. Eric Barnes is certainly out in the lead. There's our race leader, looking back for second now, and I think Jim Rouse of New Zealand is into second. The checkered flag for Eric Barnes of Australia, looking for second place now. Jim Rouse of New Zealand, holding up New Zealand's end. Well done. Looking back for third place now, and it will be John Gordon. John Gordon through for third place. There is Nigel Smith through in fifth place. Obviously had a problem. The race won by Australia's Eric Barnes. Second place to Jim Rouse of New Zealand. Third place to John Gordon of New Zealand. Here's our race winner in the final race of the day on the Christchurch Street. Eric Barnes of Australia in the Zip GP Yamaha TZ powered machine. So the final result of the day in the 250cc International Superkart Series on the streets of Christchurch. Australia's Eric Barnes leads with 43 points. England's Nigel Smith has 30 points in second place. A tie for third, John Hamilton and Jim Rouse, both from New Zealand with 29, and John Gordon from New Zealand on 28 points.
And our commentator Tony Palmer there caught up in the excitement of the street circuit in Christchurch for superkarting.